What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live for your NFL trade deadline reaction, review, recap, whatever you want to call it. It's me, Mitch of the BLV, breaking it down, discussing, analyzing every single trade from the NFL trade deadline today, Tuesday, November 1st, 2022. So I'm not going to be talking about all the trades that already happened. Roquan Smith, Kadarius Toney, Christian McCaffrey. I've pretty much already talked about those trades. If you do want to ask questions about those trades, feel free to ask questions. I will talk about them if you ask me a question. Not guaranteed though. But we are going to discuss all the trades that happened today because there were a ton of trades that happened today in the NFL. So much so that I didn't even expect to do this video, make this video, or go live today. But hey, we're here and it's got to be done. You know, it's got to be done. You got to adjust. So the plan for today is we're going to talk about each trade. I'm going to give a grade, an A+ to an F. And I'm going to discuss why I like it, why I don't like it. We're going to go over the compensation, all the news. And this is just off the top of the head, bro. This is off the top of the head. This is off the top of the noggin, how I feel about the trade. I haven't sat down and investigated it and really gone over every single detail. But this is just my raw reaction to how I feel it may help the team, how it may hurt the team, how it helps each party involved, okay? So if that sounds good, don't forget to spike that like button. Also, show some support in the comment section. Let me know how you feel. Let me know your favorite trade of the trade deadline today, Tuesday, November 1st, 2022. And let me know if you are one of those teams, a fan of one of those teams that made a big deal today. Are you a Fins fan? How do you feel about Bradley Chubb? Are you a Vikings fan? How do you feel about T.J Hockenson? Are you a Bills fan? How do you feel about adding a receiving running back like Nyheim Hines to this Super Bowl run? Let me know in the comments section below and appreciate all the support. Later on today, for those of you that are live with me right now, I'm also going to be making a video. I possibly will go live as well for a tier ranking. Instead of power rankings, what I'm going to do, because we're mid-season, I'm going to go over a mid-season NFL tier rankings. That will be tonight, so make sure to tune into that video as well. So let's just start off. We're going to go in order based on NFL.com and talk about each trade. So spike that like button. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know how you're feeling in the comments. Shout out to everybody in the comments. We got Justin Carpenter. We got Jonathan Haley. We've got Harley Quinn, of course. Daniel is in the chat. We've also got Caesar, Mr. Singh, Big Al. And we've got Tessa. By the way, I've got to say, Tessa, can't believe what you did on Sunday. Can't believe it. But thank you guys for joining me. Let's go. We've got the Vikings. We've got the Lions. Big trade in the NFC North. T.J Hockenson traded in division. A rare in-division trade between the Vikings and the Lions. We had T.J Hockenson, the tight end, one of the top in the game. A first-round pick of Detroit during the Matt Patricia era of the Lions. We have T.J Hockenson, a fourth-round pick this year, and a conditional fourth-round pick in 2024 is what Minnesota received in the deal for a 2023 second-round pick and a 2024 third-round pick. So, again, T.J Hockenson, the tight end, a 2023 fourth-round pick and a 2024 fourth-round pick for a 2023 second-round pick and a 2024 third-round pick. So some picks from this year, some picks from next year, some swaps, and T.J Hockenson involved in this deal. Personally, I do like the trade for the Vikings. I think this is a solid trade. I also think it's solid value for the Detroit Lions, getting a second and a third in the deal and dishing back a couple of fourth-round picks along with T.J Hockenson. Now, Detroit is still a team that is rebuilding, And this is a player that was picked in the first round from the previous regime. They are not tied to this player. I believe he's also coming up on his, next contract. So there's also going to be some money invested into T.J Hockenson moving forward for Minnesota. So you've got to talk about that and think about that as well in the deal. I personally like the deal for both teams. I think the Lions are a season away from competing. I think they need to have another strong offseason. As I've said all along, 2 years ago, I said they're 2 years away. This offseason, when everyone was saying, "I'll bet the over, bet the over, bet the over" on the Detroit Lions, I said, whoa, hold up, wait a minute. You've got to really talk about what this defense is right now, where Jared Goff's at. They're still a season away. And with Aaron Rodgers potentially leaving this division, Detroit get some more draft picks, pick up some more capital, use it elsewhere. Now, I'm not sure about the whole Dan Campbell experiment, whether he's the future, but you gain more picks, some higher value picks, maybe to even find that future at the quarterback position. Regardless, though, how does this help the Vikings right now with T.J Hockenson? Well, T.J Hockenson has been at times a top 10 tight end in the NFL. I think he has a very balanced, well-rounded skill set as a tight end that has soft, reliable hands. As a tight end that I think is deceptively athletic, got some pretty good speed, got some pretty good leaping ability, some good yards after catch ability, and he can also block a little bit. He at least blocked in college. Now, at the pros, he's been okay, not the best, but certainly a serviceable blocker. We've also seen him have rapport with some better quarterbacks like Matthew Stafford, pocket quarterbacks of the level of somebody like Kirk Cousins. Stafford has usually gotten better out of receivers, better out of tight ends than other players, but I do look at T.J Hockenson as a player that is a perfect third option on an offense, right? He's not going to be your number one go-to guy the way that a Travis Kelce or a Mark Andrews is going to be, but there's not many tight ends that can be that. He would be fine as a second option if you have a true alpha wide receiver like Justin Jefferson, like the Vikings have. He can definitely be a serviceable 700, 800-yard tight end with 60 catches on the year, 7 touchdowns on the year. He's certainly capable of those numbers. But as a third option in this offense, with Adam Thielen getting a little bit older, probably not hanging around or sticking around with this team into the future, I think Hockenson for this year, as the Vikings are 6-1, as the Vikings sit as one of the top teams in the NFC, they can benefit as Hockenson as that third option in the receiving game. And then into the future, maybe he becomes your second option, or maybe you add another young receiver down the road. But regardless, he's that middle of the field worker. He's that guy that can get open against zone coverage, find the soft spots in the zone, and be very reliable as a possession tight end. He also can be good in the screen game. And I do look at T.J Hockenson and look at what Tyler Higbee did with the Rams last year and what he did with Kevin O'Connell as that offensive play designer and offensive coordinator alongside Sean McVay. And I do think that Hockenson will be utilized very much like the way that Tyler Higbee was utilized. And that's a guy that's going to catch screen passes. That's a guy that will have to block. That's a guy that will run a lot of crossing routes, a lot of underneath routes. He will be a weapon in the red zone, but he's ultimately a complement to the best receivers on the team. This is a team that loves to run 3 receivers, a tight end, and a running back. So they ask a lot of that one tight end, right? So it is valuable to this offense to have a good tight end because of how much and how high of a snap percentage that tight end typically plays, like a Tyler Higbee that we've seen. So I feel like T.J Hockenson, good football player, helps a good NFC team get a little bit better. Is this going to push them over the top as the best team in the NFC? Unlikely, but it does help them at least compete and give them another weapon and gives Kirk Cousins a reliable option over the middle of the field. Look, Irv Smith has been kind of a bust so far. He's not that dude. He's not that guy, okay? And Irv Smith consistently gets hurt. He doesn't really separate from defenses. I just don't view Irv Smith as really a starting caliber, top-notch tight end. T.J Hockenson, you move up into the top 12, top 10 options at the position with this trade. But like I said, I like the move for both sides. I think it helps the Lions into the future. Don't have to pay this position. They haven't really figured out a consistent way to get him involved in the offense. And Jared Goff also, just looking short term, has never been a guy that really consistently relies on tight ends. So all that mixed into the pot, I think the Lions view this position as not one that they need a premium guy at. They can move on, get other assets, help their defense, help their quarterback, whatever they need to do. But that's the way I view this Hockenson to the Lions trade. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Hold on. Okay. Tessa says, Mitch, you better rank us top 5 on the power ranking. We'll see, Tessa. We'll see how that goes. Probably not top 5, though, because you didn't show up for the entire stream. So, no, I'm not doing it. Singh says, I was shocked that TJ got traded. Jamari says, I really think the Vikings can win the NFC if they can play defense for 4 quarters. Problem there, Jamari, is the defense can't play defense for 4 quarters. Anthony says, I got $10 4-team underdog parlay that pays $7,200. Whoa, that's crazy, bro. In terms of my grade for this trade, I would give this trade, for the Vikings, I would say it's a solid B. Maybe, yeah, like a solid B, B minus. For the Lions, I would say it's a solid B. Again, I think it's around a B for both sides. I think the Vikings get better. I think they get better at tight end. I think they add more versatility to their offense. I think they add, another playmaker, which they did need depth at the playmaker spots, tight end, wide receiver in general. And the Lions, they just get assets to help them down the road. So I feel like it's a solid B going both ways. The next trade we've got to discuss is Chase Claypool, the Canadian Mapletron wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers, being traded for this year's 2023 second-round draft pick of the Chicago Bears. Now, this isn't the draft pick that they got in the trade for Roquan Smith, but it is potentially, probably, a better pick. A better pick. So, essentially, the Chicago Bears traded their second, which is a better, more premium pick than the Ravens' second, to the Steelers for a worse football player in Chase Claypool at a more premium position. I will give you that, a more premium position than Roquan Smith at linebacker, but that's pretty crazy, right? Roquan went for a second and a fifth, but a second round, a higher second round for Chase Claypool. Personally, I don't like this trade for the Bears. I don't like this trade. Chase Claypool, to me, is a talented guy. Sure, he certainly has some rare ability. He certainly has some traits that pop off the screen. He has size. He has speed. He has a large, long wingspan. He's got big hands, right? He's definitely charismatic. He's a guy that will pull the fan base in, but he's not a special receiver from what I've seen. Now, maybe he's been limited due to the quarterback play. Maybe we haven't seen the best of Chase Claypool yet, and I guarantee you that's what the Bears are thinking. That's what the Bears are thinking. They're thinking, this Chase Claypool guy has been pretty productive in his career, his short career with the Steelers, but he's never quite been utilized correctly. He's never been utilized to his strengths. He's never been put in a position to be that top wide receiver. He's never been put with a quarterback like a Justin Fields, who I'm not the biggest fan, but what Justin Fields does well is he throws the ball down the field, right? And Justin Fields could use a jump ball wide receiver like a Chase Claypool. So I look at this and I say, that makes sense. It makes sense from a skill set standpoint that Chicago would want to acquire a wide receiver who can go up and get the football. A wide receiver who is fast, who is big, who is a playmaker down the field, who stretches defenses. And now you've got a speedster in Darnell Mooney and a big target, a big go up and get it target in Chase Claypool. And that makes sense, right? And Claypool, you can also use him as a runner, a reverse receiver, a hybrid weapon, right? But this is my problem with Chase Claypool and this trade for the Bears. I don't exactly love, and I hate doing this. I hate analyzing trades like this because I don't know Chase Claypool personally. I don't know him. I'm not a friend of his. I've never talked to him personally, but there's certainly been some issues with Chase Claypool in terms of behind the scenes. There's been rumors and rumblings. He's definitely a me guy over a we guy, at least it seems. So I wouldn't be all over trading for a receiver who's been a little bit hit and miss, a little bit inconsistent, and a guy that's been rumored to be a me guy. Again, I don't know. I can't confirm it. I don't know him. But I definitely think that you can say, based on the rumblings, that there is that possibility. So for me, I don't love this trade because I think you can find Chase Claypools in the second round. I feel like you can find talented guys for this pick. I feel like you could use this pick in a multitude of ways. I feel like you could get better players with this pick, right? So I don't love it for the Bears. I understand it. Chase Claypool is young. Chase Claypool fits what they want to do. Chase Claypool is a good fit for Justin Fields. I get it, but I don't love the value of the trade ultimately. But at the end of the day, guys, we do know that it doesn't matter if that pick goes to waste, right? If that pick is used on a bust, it doesn't really matter. But my question is, and my thought is, I don't know if Chase Claypool himself is not more of a bust than he is a hit. So, I could easily see Chase Claypool getting paid too much money and not being worth that contract in a couple of years. I could easily see that happening. So, I get it. You want to go out there. You want to give Justin Fields a weapon so that you can see if he's worth it, right? I think this trade is more than anything. It's about getting a receiver that not only fits Justin Fields, but a receiver in general. It's just about getting a weapon so that you can see if Justin Fields is your guy for the future. Because I think right now, a lot of people would look at the Bears roster and say, they don't have the weapons around Fields to really get a great assessment of whether or not he's worth it, right? So this is even more of an investment in Justin Fields than it is in Chase Claypool, than it is in wide receiver in general. It's a move to showcase Fields to the general manager, to this coaching staff for the rest of the season, because then you give a weapon to this quarterback to see if he is your guy for the future. That is what this trade really is to me. More so than Chase Claypool in general, it's just to get another receiver who has talent to put in that room to see if you've got your quarterback of the future. And Justin Fields has played well the last couple of weeks, so I think the Bears were urged and motivated to go out there and say, let's get a receiver to see if he's really the real deal so that we can stick with him for the next couple seasons. Because if he's not the guy, we've got Mooney, we've got Kmet, we've got Claypool. If he's not the guy, we've got enough weapons here. Our running backs are good that if he doesn't play well now, we've already got to limit our offense to be this kind of this kind of college-y run first offense. If he can't do it with this, he's never going to be able to do it. So that's kind of the way I look at it, right? So Claypool for the second has so many more details to it than just the trade on the surface, guys. So that's how I see it. Gronk, spike the like button if you haven't. My grade for this trade, considering everything, I would say this is an A for the Steelers. This is an A. You've got Deontay Johnson. You've got George Pickens. You could argue both of these players are better than Chase Claypool, and I wouldn't disagree with you. You've also got some other guys behind those guys, like in the future, Calvin Austin, for example, a prospect that I liked. The Steelers have shown that they can draft receivers, that they can replace receivers at will, and you're not in the hunt this year for a Super Bowl, or even a playoff spot for that matter. So the Steelers, they actively make their team worse short term, but might make their team better long term. That second round pick could be utilized to help that defense. It could be utilized to help the offensive line. It could be utilized to help quarterback, for all we know, or maybe even draft another receiver. So the Steelers, I think, get an A. For the Bears, I give them a C+. I don't think it's great value, but I understand it. Okay, so I'm going to give them a C+ for the move. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of that trade. What's up, Landon? What's up, Josh? Nice to see you, man. Okay. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers traded Chase Claypool, and they added a cornerback via trade from the Washington Commanders. William Jackson, the corner formerly of the Cincinnati Bengals, who they know a lot about because he played for the Bengals for years. So they've got very good intel on William Jackson and how good he can be. Okay? William Jackson and a conditional 7th round pick in 2025. So not this year's draft, not next year's draft, but the year after, for a 6th round pick in 2025. Okay, so to me, this is a cap move for the Commanders, and this is a steal for the Steelers. The Steelers stole a cornerback in this trade. Now, William Jackson has not been playing his best football. William Jackson has been a bust of a signing for the Washington Commanders. But you take a player that has played the way that he has played throughout his career at the peak of his powers, right? William Jackson has been a number 1 corner at the peak of his powers. He's been a borderline top 10 corner at the peak of his powers. And I do not believe he's that old. I want to say he's like 28, okay? So William Jackson, at the peak of his powers, is a number 1 corner. This is a position of need for the Steelers. It's been for a long time. They add William Jackson to a corner room that is not very good, that is very light on bodies and light on playmakers. They get him for a 6th round pick, and they even get a 7th back 2 years from now. Who cares? And they add him to the difference of this coaching staff, right? If you're William Jackson, you're going from the vanilla defense of Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio, a scheme that didn't suit you, a scheme that didn't help you, a scheme that didn't fit you. In Washington, a lot of zone coverage. To Pittsburgh with Mike Tomlin and Brian Flores, 2 of the best defensive minds in football, who have taken an older Joe Hayden and made him better than he is, who has taken Minkah Fitzpatrick, transformed him into the best safety in football after looking kind of like a bust in Miami. They've taken some corners and made them better. They've taken some safeties and made them better. They've taken some defensive players in general and made them better. And this is a system now that, yes, has traditionally been a lot of zone coverage, which William Jackson has never suited. But with Flores in the mix now and influential to that defense, you could see him maybe take over a little bit more as we go on here. And maybe they shift more to some man coverage stuff, right? And William Jackson would really benefit from that, and Brian Flores has always been a man coverage over everything else type of defensive coach. So that's interesting to me, right? But I think William Jackson can still play. I think he's still got talent. I think he's still got skills. And put in the right position, corner is a lot about scheme. It's a lot about being in the right position. It's a lot about having the right coaches and mentors around you. I feel like Pittsburgh got a great deal here, an absolute steal. So they get a great value for Chase Claypool, and then they get a player that can help their defense in William Jackson. Love that trade for them. Love that trade for them. Okay. So, Steelers make some good moves. Gronk spiked the like button, guys, if you haven't. The Miami Dolphins and the Denver Broncos made a mega deal. Bradley Chubb is now a Miami Dolphin. Bradley Chubb, the former number 1 edge player of his draft class, when he's on the field, an alpha pass rusher, a stud, a monster in all facets of the game. Bradley Chubb, outside linebacker of the Denver Broncos, edge defender, and a 5th round pick in 2025. A mega deal for Chase Edmonds, the running back that the Dolphins signed this offseason, the former Arizona Cardinal. I'm a fan of Chase Edmonds, the shifty, pass-catching running back that can help the Denver Broncos short-term and probably pair with Javonte Williams long-term. That's interesting to me. Plus a 1st-round pick, which is the big part of the deal, this season, which currently is a mid-round pick. You got to project that as somewhere in the 20s, assuming the Dolphins can make the wild card. And a 2024 4th-round draft pick. So what are the Miami Dolphins doing here? They are looking at their competition in the AFC, both short-term and long-term. They're going all in on Tua as their quarterback. They're getting rid of all their picks. They're all in on Tua as the guy. Which I think so far, Tua isn't a superstar, but he's provided solid quarterback play this year. He's certainly had a couple very good games. I think that's fair enough. But they're looking at the Chiefs and the Bills, and they're saying, how can we beat the Chiefs and the Bills? We need a pass rush. And Miami, their pass rush has been a disaster. Their pass rush has been terrible. Their pass rush has been underwhelming. Their pass rush has not lived up to expectations. So they go up, they get Bradley Chubb. So now you got Bradley Chubb. You got Jalen Phillips. You got Ogba. You've got some pieces to get to the quarterback now, and you've got some real good interior players as well. I think Miami's defense has not played well. It's been underwhelming. Brian Flores left. That has certainly had an impact. But Bradley Chubb should really help in the run game, setting the edge, and getting to the quarterback as an edge pass rusher. Okay? Bradley Chubb, I believe, is a free agent after the year. I'm going to check that right now just because I want to get my facts right here. So Bradley Chubb was drafted in 2018. He is a free agent after this season. He currently makes $7 million this year. He is 26 years old. So looking at Bradley Chubb as a football player, he has 5.5 sacks this season. Right? 5.5 sacks. And I'm looking at his stats. 2 forced fumbles, 26 tackles. He's had a good season. Every time I've watched Bradley Chubb, he's stood out. Right? 5.5 sacks this year. He has a 12-sack season on his resume as a rookie. He had 7.5 sacks in 2020 where he went to the Pro Bowl. Okay? And since coming back, he's looked like the real deal. And he has 8 quarterback hits this year, according to Pro Football Reference. Okay? 16 pressures. So, he's a good pass rusher. Is he an elite pass rusher? I'd say no. I think he's a good pass rusher. I think he's a good football player. Do I think he's worth a first-round pick? I mean, I don't think so. Personally, I don't think he's worth a first-round pick given his current contract status. If you were saying, oh, you're getting Bradley Chubb after his second season, so you've got his third season and his fourth season still on a rookie contract, I would say, yeah, that's a good deal. Like a first round pick for a guy that was like a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, and you've got him on a rookie contract. But you're sending a first round pick for a very good football player. Don't get me wrong, very good and well-rounded and suits this defense, right? He's a perfect fit for this defense. He can defend the run, he can get to the quarterback, he can set the edge, he's athletic. He's a great fit for this Patriot-esque style of defense under Boyer. It's a great fit. But you've got to sign him after this year, right? You've got to sign him. So you're going to give him a lot of money. Like, this is not a guy where he's got all the power. You just traded a first-round pick for him. Think about that. A first-round pick. He's got all the power to be making over 10 million a year, 12 million a year as a player, 15 maybe. Now he's going to be asking for Matt Judon free agent money. He's going to be asking for a lot of money on the open market because he's got all the power, right? So he's a good player, but a first round pick and a fourth round pick next year, that's just a lot. I'm not even talking about Chase Edmonds. That's a lot, right? If he was, like, it's not even the age to me because he's only 26 right now. But if Bradley Chubb were like, if he were T.J. Watt, if he were Myles Garrett, if he were, Max Crosby, if he were of that level in that group of pass rushers, I would say, yeah, go ahead. Just trade a first, trade another second, do what you got to do. Because those players, if he were Joey Bosa even with a disappointing season that he's had, I'd say, yeah, trade a first for Joey Bosa. Because Joey Bosa, year after year after year, has put up 10 sacks, 8 sacks, 9 sacks, lots of pressure, well-rounded player, right? So I think Joey Bosa is like a good, you're not going to get Myles Garrett for a first and all that, but you're going to get Myles Garrett for 3 firsts maybe. But, you know what I mean? So if he were like that type of player, like if he were like Joey Bosa level consistently, I'd say, okay, give a first round pick and all that stuff because you know what you're getting. Bradley Chubb, there's still a question of like, can he stay healthy long term? He hasn't been able to stay healthy throughout his career. Sure, he's been good when he's been playing, but he's never been great, right? So there's a lot of questions here for me. If Bradley Chubb turns into that level of player, then it's probably a home run. It's probably a home run of a trade. If he turns into that level of defensive end, where you're talking about him in the same sentence as guys like T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Nick Bosa, and those guys, then that's a phenomenal trade, and it's worth the money. Because pass rushers are worth the money, especially when you're in the division of Patrick Mahomes. And the conference, I should say. Right? So, Mahomes and Allen and all that. So, I look at it and I say, it's a good move for the short term, but it's iffy long term. And then I say, well, short term, what are the expectations for Miami? Does this move the dial for the Dolphins as a contender in the AFC? And I'd say yes, but it moves them from, the wild card, are they going to make it? Like, this is the way I viewed Miami before this trade. The wild card, are they going to make it? Are they not going to make it? To, yeah, they're going to make the playoffs. They'll probably maybe win a game. And that's about it. Like, I still don't see the Dolphins going to Kansas City and beating the Chiefs. I don't see the Dolphins going to Buffalo and beating the Bills. I don't see the Dolphins. I could see, a lot of these lesser tier AFC teams. The Ravens, right? The Bengals. Some of these teams that I don't know if they're going to make this playoffs or not, but maybe they do. I could see them beating the Dolphins still. So I still look at it and I say, like, I don't know. Like, yeah, it makes you better, but I would have rather had this first round pick because I got to pay this guy, right? I'm not even there yet from a Super Bowl contention standpoint. I still got problems with my offensive line. My defense has problems. It hasn't lived up to the hype. Right? Tua's good, but he's been fine, but he's not great. So I don't know, man. Like, I think this is a great deal for Denver. Because Denver, in a way, is getting more ammunition to help them out with their mistake that they made with Russell Wilson. Right? You get a first-round pick. You do get a player that can contribute right away with Chase Edmonds. And you get a fourth-round pick in 2024 as well. So you're getting some ammunition to help you out with this whole Russell Wilson deal. So I like it for Denver. I think it's an A for Denver. I think it's a C for the Dolphins. Like, I like Bradley Chubb. I think he's a very good football player. I don't think, because of all the reasons I said, not quite a Super Bowl team. The long term is a bit iffy. A lot of questions with the player himself. That is why I'd give it just a C. So, Denver an A, Miami a C there. All right. Gronk, spike the like button if you haven't already, guys. It's Mitch of the BLV. I'm going to continue to break down these trades. It'll be interesting to see how Chase Edmonds is utilized in Denver as well. I could see him kind of becoming a third down back for them long term. This season, he could be the best running back on that team right now. Like, he's an upgrade over Melvin Gordon. He's an upgrade over Latavius Murray. I think he could be their lead back for Denver. And he fits that system pretty well. Jacksonville made a huge deal. And it's probably the big deal that's being kind of underrated, underestimated. It's under the radar for sure. Jacksonville has traded for suspended wide receiver Calvin Ridley of the Atlanta Falcons. Calvin Ridley has been traded to Jacksonville for a 5th round pick this season and a 2nd round pick in 2024. If you ask me, who would I rather have long term? Calvin Ridley or Bradley Chubb? I would probably say Calvin Ridley. So, for Jacksonville to get Calvin Ridley, who is a really good football player. I know that we haven't seen him play this year. He's going to have a year off of football because of the gambling suspension. Calvin Ridley is really good. Calvin Ridley is a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. Calvin Ridley is one of the most crisp route runners in football. Calvin Ridley is going to help your quarterback, your investment, your number 1 pick, Trevor Lawrence. And you didn't even give up a 1st or a 2nd this year. So for me, Jacksonville, assuming that Calvin Ridley comes back and he gets off the gambling sites and he stops watching BLV Best Bets every week, assuming that happens, you've got your number 1 receiver for Trevor Lawrence. How many people have been saying this season, last offseason, the Jags need to get a number 1 wide receiver for Trevor Lawrence? Now, they've added pieces around him. They've added Christian Kirk. Overpaid, but a solid signing so far. Evan Ingram. Nice little 1-year signing, but no long term. Marvin Jones is old. Zay Jones has been a solid signing. Again, overpaid, but solid. But you needed a number 1 receiver. And you get one without having to spend a 1st round pick in the draft or a 1st round pick via trade. So as long as Calvin Ridley comes back close to the player that he was, this to me is a value and a great trade for Jacksonville long term. And they're going all in on Trevor Lawrence next year. And expect Jacksonville to be very, very, very much invested in building this team for next season. Because that's their chance next year. You look at this division, Houston trash, Colts no quarterback, Titans, they're hanging on by a thread. They got the Mike Vrabel factor, but they're hanging on by a thread. They're your real competition here. Jacksonville should be all in on winning that division next year. So this move's about winning the division next year, being a contender next year, and I love it for that. I love it for that. This is a great trade for Jacksonville. Calvin Ridley's a very good football player. Let's take a look at his statistics. So Calvin Ridley, I would have liked New England to trade for him, honestly. So he is 27 right now. He's going to be 28 next year, which is very much still the prime of wide receiver play. As a rookie, he had 64 catches, 821 yards, and 10 touchdowns. In 2019, he had pretty much the same year, but in less games. 13 games, 63 catches, 866 yards, 7 touchdowns. In 2020, he broke out. 2020 had a breakout year, 90 catches, 1,300 yards in 15 games, and 9 touchdowns. He was a second-team All-Pro at 26 years old. And last year, he got injured after 5 games. So this year, I think that's a great trade. But I also don't think it's a bad trade for Atlanta. And this is why. Last year when Calvin Ridley took the field for Arthur Smith, Calvin Ridley wasn't super productive for his offense. Calvin Ridley is not exactly the need of the Falcons right now. When you look at Atlanta, they've been successful this year. They've been winning games this year. How have they been winning games? They're 4-4. Been running the ball. Playing run-heavy style. They want to have a quarterback who can be a dual threat, who can run. They want to be strong up front on the offensive line. They want to have these freak show weapons like Drake London and Kyle Pitts. They're building around Drake London and Kyle Pitts, and they're going to build around the run game. So getting a 2nd and a 5th round pick is solid for Atlanta, right? When you think about the way their team is and the way they're winning right now without Calvin Ridley on their team, right? This is a player that they don't currently have on their team. It's not like they're 4-4 with Calvin Ridley. No. They don't have Calvin Ridley at all. They're 4-4 with a lackluster defense, with a quarterback that's not exactly top tier, with not a very talented roster in general. So they add picks to their future, maybe to help them get a long-term solution at quarterback, maybe to help their defense, maybe to help their offensive line, right? But it won't be to get a receiver. It won't be. They spent their, I think, 10th overall pick or whatever it was, 8th overall pick this year on a receiver. That's the receiver they wanted, Drake London. They got their number 1 receiver for the future, Drake London. They've got their tight end, Kyle Pitts. So those are the options for the receiving game moving forward. They don't need any more. So they move Calvin Ridley to help them at other positions, to help them maybe find a quarterback. It makes sense. It makes sense. Would you have liked to have gotten more? Sure. But understanding that the guy was hurt last year, understanding that the guy was suspended this year, there's going to be questions, and how much value are you really going to get for Calvin Ridley on the open market? So I love the move for Jacksonville because of who they have and the type of team they want to be. And they get another playmaker, a number 1 receiver for Trevor Lawrence next year. And I really like the move for Atlanta because their identity is totally opposite of what Calvin Ridley fits into. So I like the move for both teams. I'm going to say it's an A for both teams. I'm going to say it's an A for both teams. Maybe a B plus for Atlanta. B plus because they didn't get all the value in the world. But I'm going to give an A to Jacksonville for that move. Next up, we've got the a small trade here. Not going to spend too much time. So Bradley Chubb got traded to the Miami Dolphins as we discussed, right? So the Broncos, they've got some pretty good edge depth. I know that they've got Browning, who they love. They've got Randy Gregory. They signed him long term. They trade for a very underrated role player, Jacob Martin of the New York Jets. He actually had, I believe, a strip sack on Mac Jones just last week. So he was playing for the Jets, and he was active on the Jets, and he was making plays. And He played for Houston. I've always been a fan of his game. He's a good, solid pass rushing rotation edge player. So I like Jacob Martin quite a bit. That's a 4th round pick as well in 2024. And New York receives a 2024 4th round draft pick. 5th round pick. So it's Martin and a 5th for a 4th. Okay? Martin and a 5th for a 4th. So I like this move for Denver. Basically what Denver's saying is, hey, we're not going to go and sell our team. We're not going to say that we're going to be totally vacated of talent this year. We're still going to try to win this year. So we're going to go out and we're going to get a role player that can contribute. But when you look at Denver, they've got a very good edge position already. So they move a more valuable asset to get a 1st round pick, and they get back a player that can contribute in another deal. And all they have to do is swap picks. So I like this move for Denver quite a bit. You know, when you consider everything, right? When you consider everything, Chubb deal plus Martin deal, you basically get, the trade would be Chase Edmonds, a 1st round pick this year, a 4th round pick next year, Martin, and a 5th. That's 5 things, right? 5 things. Denver might have actually gotten better, okay? And you trade away Chubb and a next year 5th and a 4th. So you get 5 things, including 2 players for 1 player, a 1st round pick for 3 things. That's not bad. Am I wrong about that? So I do really like the swap for the Broncos. So I'm going to give the Broncos, man, an A+ for today. I'm giving the Broncos an A+. I love it. I love what they've done. Now, talking about Martin, I know he's not a guy that a lot of people know of. So just talking about him. I've always liked him because every time I've watched him, he just stands out as an edge pass rusher. He gets dirty in there, and he makes plays. But he's just a depth player. He only has 1.5 sacks this year, and he was deep on that depth chart with the Jets because they have such a strong defensive line. But the last few years of his career, he's played in Houston. You know, he's been a guy that's kind of consistently brought 4 sacks to the table when he's played, and he's a guy that usually plays like 40%, 30% of snaps, but he's at least a guy that can help them for the short term in that depth position. Okay, the next move was the Buffalo Bills and the Indianapolis Colts. Nyheim Hines, the running back, the receiving back of the Indianapolis Colts, traded to the Buffalo Bills for Zach Moss and a 2023 conditional 5th round pick. So the Colts, after raving about Nyheim Hines all offseason, they trade him, saying, Frank Reich said, oh, you got to draft Nyheim Hines in fantasy. You got to do it. Well, things changed. Hines to the Bills for Moss, a power back, and a 5th round pick. Okay, so let's talk about it from both sides. So, for the Colts, the biggest reason I believe the Colts made this deal is because Deion Jackson. This Deion Jackson kid that they have behind Jonathan Taylor is the real deal. I've seen this guy play now the last few weeks. He's got explosiveness. He can catch the football. He's fast, man. He's a playmaker. So I think they really like the Jackson kid to pair with Jonathan Taylor, and they get a 5th round pick And they get a different type of running back who could probably be their third string running back, Zach Moss, who's a power back. So Zach Moss can more so be like, if Jonathan Taylor were to be hurt, Zach Moss can be that first and second down grinder type guy. Now, I'm not the biggest Zach Moss guy in the world, but maybe it wasn't a great fit in Buffalo and will be a better fit in Indianapolis. You don't really know. But they get a 5th round pick and they get Zach Moss. Now, for Buffalo, this trade is all about Buffalo, right? They've been looking for this type of running back for an entire season now. They have been trying to sign any running back that has had any semblance or history of being a receiving running back. It all started when they wanted to get J.D. McKissic from Washington this offseason, and that deal fell through and he ended up re-signing in Washington. They tried to get Duke Johnson, right? They've tried to get James Cook, 2nd round pick used on him. Now they get Nyheim Hines. Maybe they feel like James Cook isn't ready. Maybe they feel like James Cook isn't that dude. Maybe they feel like he's never going to be ready. Nyheim Hines is a very good receiving running back. He's a very good running back in general. Nyheim Hines can be a very nice 1-2 punch with Devin Singletary. Nyheim Hines has speed. Nyheim Hines has explosion. Nyheim Hines is a guy that returns punts. Nyheim Hines is a guy that can return kicks. This is a guy that in the open field can break away from a defense. You see a lot of runs that Devin Singletary has where he breaks a run for 20 yards. If Nyheim Hines has those same carries, Nyheim Hines might be able to create every once in a while one of those 20-yard runs into a 40-yard, 50-yard run. Now, he hasn't been the same player this year from a rushing perspective, but he's showcased that speed in the past, right? This guy's had seasons of like really good production as a receiver. Look at his 63 catches as a rookie, 44 catches in his second year, 63 catches in his third year, 40 catches last year, 25 so far this year. He's been a really productive pass catcher. This season, an 89.3 catch percentage. Very high number there. And you look at rushing-wise, he hasn't gotten a lot of work this year, but he has put up 4.9 yards per carry last year. So he's an explosive player when given the opportunity. He is a well-rounded pass catcher. He is a guy that can run routes out of the backfield. And that is a missing piece of this offense that the Bills have been searching for an entire season now. So you've got to give them credit for going out and still looking for that guy and making that deal. Maybe they feel like that's the missing piece for their offense. It very well could be a guy that can take a swing pass and create extra yards after the catch. So I give the Bills a B for this move, and I give the Colts a C plus. C plus. It's a solid trade. Maybe a B. So, this isn't a difference-making trade necessarily for Buffalo, but it should help them. And for the Colts, it made sense because they like the Jackson running back. They get Zach Moss, a different type of running back. They get a draft pick as well. So, a B, a C plus, that makes sense to me. And we've got our final move of the day, which was Rashad Fenton for a 7th round pick in 2023. Rashad Fenton sent to Atlanta, an Atlanta team that surprisingly finds themselves as the number 1 team in the NFC South so far through halfway through the season. So they're still looking to compete. They're looking to make the playoffs this year if they can. And they get some depth at cornerback, a position where they've been absolutely destroyed by injuries this year, and they have not had quality depth and quality veterans to fill in. Rashad Fenton is a solid corner. He's been good for the Chiefs, for a couple of years. This year, I have not been a fan. I don't think he's played very well for the Chiefs this year. But the 2020, 2021, where he's played primarily outside corner, he's been pretty good. So I think Fenton is a guy that does profile similarly physically to Casey Hayward, who's a guy that they also signed this offseason. He does have experience in man and zone coverage, playing in a man-heavy scheme with Spagnuolo. And Spagnuolo does play a lot of different types of coverages, and so does Dean Pease. So that's a defense and a fit that makes sense. And Fenton has at times graded out very well in his career. Now, if I were just to look at Fenton on PFF, I could probably look at it. This year, I want to say, is his worst year that he's had in a while. Just based on watching him. I don't even know where he grades, to be honest with you. But just looking at just my two eyes. So, Fenton has ranked 73rd, graded at 73rd by PFF this year. Last two seasons, in 2021, he graded as the 6th best corner in football. And in 2020, he graded as the 26th best corner in football. So I was correct. He's also a 97, so he's about 27, 28 years old. He's played 281 snaps as wide corner this season. So he does play, like I said, he plays out wide, perimeter corner. He is 5'11". He is a little bit on the smaller side. 5'11", I'm a little surprised to see. I thought he was more so like 5'9". But he's about 5'11", so similar size to Casey Hayward. Can play zone, can play man. Does have a lot of experience in the NFL, and has played quite a bit this year for the Chiefs. Now, why would the Chiefs trade a solid player who's played well for them in the past? I think it's just because they want their young corners to play more. I really think that's it. Maybe it's a cap space move. Maybe they're looking to sign a free agent like Odell Beckham. Maybe they're looking to sign a free agent like, I don't know, maybe a Ndamukong Suh or some of these veterans that they could sign at the end of the year to help at other spots potentially. But Jalen Watson has been a corner that they have started a lot out there, right? Joshua Williams is another guy that's played for them. L'Jarius Sneed is their number 1 corner, and Trent McDuffie is their first-round pick who's coming back from injury. So they've got those 4 corners now. L'Jarius Sneed, Trent McDuffie, and Watson project to be their starting corners for the rest of the year. Fenton has been the one that... Fenton and Watson have been the ones where I've been, not sure about them. But McDuffie, maybe, comes back and helps that out. But they're looking to just play those guys a little bit more. So that's kind of how I feel about that trade. And I like the trade for Atlanta as well. I like that Atlanta's making a trade here. It didn't cost them very much, but they remain competitive. They also traded their safety Dean Marlowe to Buffalo. Marlowe, I believe, has played for the Bills in the past, and he'll be a solid depth player that can play, in that spot for Micah Hyde, because Micah Hyde is out long-term, probably for the whole entire year for Buffalo. So this is a player that I think has experience in their defense and can maybe play a depth role for them in Buffalo. So that was another small trade to end the day. But those are my thoughts on all the trades, guys. I've gone all over every single one, so make sure to scroll back, and if you want to hear my thoughts, it's in order of how they happened. So if you were late tuning in live, just go back to the beginning if you're looking for one of the earlier trades, and I will put some timestamps on the trades after I'm done, because I think there's about 10 trades that we discussed here. But that's it, guys. So thank you for joining me here live. It's Mitch. Just checking my phone in case anything didn't pop up late. Nope. All right, so thank you guys for watching. It's Mitch. Gronk spiked the like button. Those second half mid-season tier rankings will be out tonight. Don't forget to check that out. We will see you soon. Peace.